This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Hing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. Enjoy a survey of inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. It's all right here, leading speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs with stories and messages to support your well-being, let alone your most evocative dreams.
And Coach Debbie. I just heard that intro, and it doesn't say Coach Debbie on there, so I think that we need to change that a little bit. I just heard that. I mean, I've heard it. I hear it every Tuesday, but hey, my name's Todd Allen, and today is another groovy day because I like to make it that way. And I also like to get myself situated and sorted out before we start the show, and you can do the same if you're not driving. But let's just take a minute and stretch way up high toward the universe and maybe wiggle those wrists and shake out those fingers and roll those shoulders a little bit. Stretch that back. Oh, yeah. That's And let's take in a deep breath. A deep breath. And let that breath out with a big ah. And let your essence out into the universe. One more time with a deep breath. And let that out with a big ah. And let your dreams, visions, and goals just fly out there to the universe and whatever it is that you believe, and allow it the opportunity to make those come true for you, and really focus on that and create that desire for that dream. Okay, I think that we already heard Debbie giggling. I think good job because she giggled right out of the gate today. As always, I have my co-host riding shotgun, Coach Debbie, and Coach Debbie has a lot of cool things going on in the world. What are some of the cool things that you got going? What do I need to turn it down a little?
No, darling, no. I was just thinking I do have cool things going on in the world, and how great it was to stretch the back. You know, Thanks for that. That felt really good. Yes, one cool thing that happened yesterday was I just had put my house on the market yesterday morning. We got all the photographs ready. I'm giving thanks to my house. I'm saying, wow, for 15 years, you've really done your job. Thank you. Thank you, house. And now you're going to do your job and make me some money. Thank you for that. And I was just, and so my agent, who's a very spiritual woman, we got in her car and we're racing over to see our friends, to have our ecliptical moment. And she turns to me and says, oh, guess what? I've been wanting to talk to you about writing a book. And you know what, Todd? This just keeps happening to me. I'll be doing something and I'm just really elated and happy. And someone comes over and taps me on the shoulder and says, hey, I've been giving this a lot of thought lately and I'd really like to talk to you about this. And it's just blooming. The business is blooming. And I'm so happy that I've made some big decisions, and then I've just sort of sat back and gotten in the flow of the river, and it's taken me down the stream I want to go. And thank you for being the person exactly 6 years ago who said, hey, have you ever thought about being a life coach? Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's really cool that you said goodbye to the house, because that's important. And, you've lived there for 15 years and it's a part of you and it has your energy. And for you to mentally and physically, cut those strings and say goodbye. You've served your purpose and now it's time for me to move on is a very, very powerful statement. So I want to commend you on that. Other people have told me about their practices. You know, they walk around the house 3 times, and each time they stop at the front door and just give their house praise and say goodbye, and mentally create that disconnect. And let the house be what the house is going to be, because there's a new family coming very soon.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you. It was very important to me to let the house know I'm not just, mad at you and selling you because, the business didn't go well last year, but that I'm really grateful. So yeah, thank you for saying that. Well, we've got a great show today about love and gratitude. I think we're ready to go.
Are you ready? Here we go. So our guest today is Ann Schiebert. And Ann is a doctor of clinical psychology with 20-plus years experience working with teens, adults, and families in the areas of chemical dependence, codependency, dual diagnosis, and trauma. She has designed ways in which families and couples can have more harmonious relationships based on making agreements. There's a novel idea with each other. Dr. Schiebert is the creator of Preemptive Parenting, an innovative program for parents and caretakers specifically designed to prepare children, teens, and young adults for a wide range of situations in advance. This is a preemptive, I don't want to give energy to strike, but just in advance. Her understanding is that without training, children do not naturally know what the best course of action truly is. They need to be guided. Dr. Ann, welcome to the show. What a novel idea that they need guidance. It's just not a happenstance, willy-nilly, there you go, have fun and enjoy.
Well, thank you so much to both of you for having me on your program. And yes, it's actually not quite a novel idea because we should have been doing it all along, but we didn't.
Yeah.
So I watched for years parents and teens in my office arguing and feeling resentful and getting lectures and feeling unheard. And I thought, there is something wrong with this. Families aren't supposed to be this way.
Right.
So I went home and tried something with my own 3 kids. Would you like to know what it was?
Yes.
I thought you'd say that. So I had 3 children, all 2 years apart. Thank God they weren't triplets when you hear this contract. And they all wanted a car. And I said, okay, let me think about this, because I'm sort of a parent where you kind of have to earn part of it. So I said, well, if you want a car, I will match your half. Thank God they weren't as industrious as they wanted a $60,000 car. Being industrious, I could not come up with the other $15,000. So I wrote a contract for them, and the agreement was that they would earn half of how much they wanted to spend on the car, and I'd pay the other half, and I had a contract about who was going to pay for the insurance and the gas and the maintenance and repairs for accidents. So guess what happened with that contract? I heard, well, Mom, everybody at our high school has a BMW. This isn't fair. Yeah, well, that's what they said. Who are they? I had never learned who they were. But I said, well, poor you for being in this family, but this is the contract. And guess what they did? They went out and got jobs, all 3 of them, when they reached an age where they could, and they did earn their half, and they did pay for their gas, and they did pay for half their insurance, whatever the contract said. And it worked out really well. And I thought, I'm going to do something with this in the future in a clinical way, being a psychologist. And so I came up with writing the series of books called Let's Make a Contract. And the one we're going to be talking about this morning is getting your teen through high school and beyond.
Yeah. Oh, so well said. Contracts are a way of providing formation and structure. And I remember once while I was working on a piece of writing, someone saying if you have a structure you're following, that structure will set you free because you'll know what to fill in the spaces. But if you're completely trying to be free form about everything and just, hippie lovey bohemian, not that that doesn't have its place, but there might not be the follow through that you are aiming for. So I think a lot of this show is going to be about the benefits that focus and structure has on the loving home you're trying to provide. Is that right?
Well, let's preface that just a little bit because I read something in Anne's book. Is it okay to call you Anne?
Oh, please, absolutely.
But I read something in your book that really caught my ear, well, it caught my eyes, or it caught my mind, and that is that teens really want structure, whether they realize it or not. They need that or they want that. Can you expound on that a little?
Of course I can. So, Debbie and Todd, kids cannot raise themselves. And in today's world, I think it's about 61% of families are two-income families. And kids are left on their own to figure out what to do. So we have to get ahead of that. We have to tell them what we want them to do. And we have to figure out what the trends are before our teens say, wow, that's a great trend, I want to do it. And having these contracts is the most loving thing you can do. It provides structure, and having a discourse on what our family values are, and even writing them down and posting them on the refrigerator, gives kids a foundation with which to make decisions. In my book, I have a value sort, and it's really easy to do. And somebody can read it to you, and you instantly write down in 3 different columns what is your uncompromisable value, what is your value that's important but not critical, and what values you don't really care about. So the ones that are uncompromisable are your family values, and that's what you want to teach your kids. Right. So many of us parents have no clue what our family values are.
Wow.
Well, so let's just walk through that just for a second. So we create a contract, but you know as well as I do, Ann, that kids are very manipulative and so I have this idea that you have to be stringent with that. And you have a really good chapter. It's called The Arguing Cycle, and how kids can, the poor parent just loves their kids so much, and the kids come up with this argument, and this whole cycle goes through, and ultimately the kid wins.
Well, I'm so glad you asked that question, because the kid only wins if the parent gives in and engages in the arguing. So the kids know the hooks that get their parents. And so I'll give you an example. Well, curfew's at 11 o'clock, and they come in at 11:05, and the parents don't do anything. And then the next time they come in at 11:15. And the parents say, well, you were supposed to be in at 11. And the kid says, well, you didn't do that last time I was late. What's the matter with you? And then the parents go back and forth about, well, you knew what we meant and we were busy at the moment. But that doesn't work with kids. If you're going to have something that you want to enforce, it's not negotiable. And I know it sounds unreasonable that 11 o'clock and 11:05 are really close, but
I don't think so.
Our teens and our young adults are very concrete in their understanding of things. They don't get huge concepts. So, and you will avoid the argument if you enforce it on the first time. And the minute we get into a power struggle with our teens, we're going to lose because they are so smart.
Yeah.
So to not get in a power struggle is to, well, the agreement in the contract's on the refrigerator, and I'm going to go walk, and I use this as a metaphor, my made-up dog Fido, and I use my made-up dog Fido to walk him because I'm not going to stay in and argue. So I go do something else. So I'm going to go walk Fido, and I'll talk to you in the morning. Love you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
It is an energy drain to try to prove over and over and over and over your point to a teen who really wants to win.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was that teen. I was a really good one, you know, and I just was so rebellious. If they were giving out the awards, I would have won every year. You know?
No, I think I did.
We would have tied. Yeah, the two of us. We would have, for sure. Yeah, yes.
Debbie and Todd, I sat in a group one time with a beautiful young 21-year-old, and it was a chemical dependency group. And at the break, she turned to me and she said, if my parents had given me structure and not let me crawl out of my bedroom window by putting metal guards on it, I would not be where I am today. I so wish they had done that.
Wow, she's very insightful at 21.
I thought so too. She's very intelligent. I've never really met dumb folks on this issue, and teens are really smart in getting around the rules.
Oh yeah. Well, and one of the things about the parents, my brother was 6 years younger than me, so he said it was great. He would just sort of sit back and watch me play out all this, drama with my folks. And then he'd be like, okay, do this thing that Debbie did because it was really smart, but don't do these other things she did because she got in a load of trouble. And then try this differently. He said it was just like this educational television show being played out every day in front of him. And I really think it was because he turned out pretty darn good. But
well, so did you.
Yeah.
But you did it by trial and error, and he did it by watching an expert.
Yeah, right. Well, but one of the things I've really noticed in the circles that I talk to people with is that if we don't get it while we're growing up, then we're going to play that out in our love relationships, especially the early ones. We're going to have no idea what intimacy looks like, and we're going to give in to power struggles. And that just continues these cycles. And then the unfortunate thing is that, that tends to be the people that have children, and the struggle goes on and on and on and on. But when you are offered the chance to either rewire yourself as an adult or to have some structure as a child, you understand that you don't want to be in a power struggle. In fact, that's jail. You want just some communication, something that can happen for 2 minutes, or if you absolutely know you can't have it, the freedom to walk away until that 2-minute period offers itself. But you don't want to be struggling with power.
Absolutely. And the thing that I like is that based on my contracts, I came up with this concept called preemptive parenting. And this is about, as I said, getting ahead of the teen trends. But it also provides structure, and it reduces the power interaction between parents and kids because it in a loving way, helps them create a way to become wise. What would happen to you, or what do you think you'd decide if somebody offered you a joint? Well, I don't know. Everybody's doing it. So here's our family value about it. Here's what we expect you to do. And if you decide not to do that, We are your parents. You may not like us, but we are here to love you and keep you safe. That's our job. So the consequence for going against what we think would keep you safe is this. And then they write down what the consequence is, and it makes it all the teen's choice.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, Ann, because I've often pondered. I have 3 beautiful daughters, and they're all in college now. One's about
Congratulations.
Thank you. I survived.
Yeah, you did well.
But I often ponder, because I didn't have the instructions. I certainly didn't have your book. Your book is fascinating and phenomenal, by the way.
Thank you so much.
I always look at, what key things, because there's been no problems with drugs and alcohol. I mean, there has been no problems with lack of wanting to succeed in school. I mean, I just feel like I've been so lucky. But what things did I do? And, you know, I'm a friend of Bill's. In my recovery, I spent a lot of time working on that and working my program. And something that I always did with them was to share my story. And to tell them, okay, you know, when I did this, or this is what I did, and oh my gosh, you would not believe some of the things that I did in high school. And
I probably would.
Well, I think that gave them a sense of good choices. Wouldn't you agree? I think I do. Just because
it sounds like you did preemptive parenting before it had a name.
Oh, nice.
And you know, hats off to you. But even with our successful kids, there's still things that we absolutely need to help them with, like, what about sex? That comes in, and that'll come in junior high school and high school. And what about your computer
young
use?
now.
Oh, my gosh. And computer use, that is huge, and it's getting video games, computer use. Looking at porn on the web is getting to be an addiction.
Tattoos.
And what's your family values about tattoos? You know, that kind of thing.
He's saying that because his youngest came home with a tattoo, but it was just a bumblebee, honey. It was cute, but it's still there.
But that's going to be with her for the rest of her life, and I don't know. Anne, maybe you would agree with me. They do not have the concept of forever, or at least, you know, for the rest of their life.
You're right.
Well, in my contracts that are in the book about tattooing, so there's some choices. So first of all, the family has to say what they think about tattooing, because otherwise it's a big trend now. And why wouldn't some kid think, well, it's okay, I'm going to go do it. It'll be really cool. Mm-hmm. But if the family says to themselves, this is not our value, and when you're 18, you do what you want with your body. So one of the worst consequences is if you decide to get a tattoo and you know it's against our family value, then what you are selecting is, we will pay for laser removal, really painful, and then we will take that money that we spent on that out of your Christmas and birthday gifts. Wow. And that is like the end game, because kids hate that. But, you know, it depends on, and that won't work for every family, and not every family cares much about tattoos. But I will tell you a true story. This dad said to his son, well, I know that tattoos are really cool, so here's some money, and you go get one that you really like. And this was a very intelligent guy, this teen. And he came home with a teardrop under his eye.
Ouch.
And his parents went ballistic, because
wait a minute.
Not only is that there for life, a teardrop tattoo, that's a gang symbol.
That's what I thought. Oh my God.
Yeah, but this teenager thought, wow, I am so cool because my friend's big brother got that. And so they hadn't discussed where the tattoo was going to be, how big it was going to be, what the structure was about it. So they left out that part that's so important in my book about how to create success for your teen. If they had said, left arm, right thigh, 1 inch by 1 inch, or whatever they wanted, that's the kind of tattoo we will support you in getting, then that teen would have had a huge success. He could have shown his head tattoo with pride, and there would have been no disruption or chaos in the family. But this is not the teen's fault. This is the lack of parental structure that's concrete, because we don't think about it. We think, oh, good sense, but they don't.
Right, right. I have found that when I look back at being a kid, there were areas where we didn't have conversations and I was lost. And then there were areas where we would, and I really mean a conversation, not a we're laying down the law, but a conversation. And there was a point when I was about 16 where my dad had just remarried, and I was so grateful there was a woman in the house. She could say things to him and help me along. But one thing I had heard about was this thing called the pill that made your monthly cramps so much easier. So I was a very naive girl. I went to church, all this stuff. Honestly, I didn't know the pill was for people having sex. I thought it was about monthly cramps. So I said, will you ask Dad if I can go on the pill? Oh, my God. I was in my bedroom. The door was locked. There were bars on that thing for, actually, I might have been younger than that. I might have been more like 14 or something. But there was no conversation. I thought I knew what I was talking about. I didn't realize what it was really about. I just was hearing the side benefits of your monthly cycle will be an ease if you go on this. So anyway, then like 2 months later, after I've been punished and ridiculed, we have the health movie at school, and I'm like, oh my God, this is what the problem is. And so I go home and I say to my dad, I'm going through, church and all of this stuff to not be a rebellious little pot-smoking kid. I'm actually being a good kid. I just want, I want the benefits of this medicine. And he said, well, we can't offer you the pill, but if that's really what you want, we can make sure you see a doctor. So that conversation brought an end to like a 2-month drama while we weren't talking, while there was no contract, while I just thought I was living in the dungeon.
And that has to have been so hard for you, and by the way, for your dad, because talking about sex is one of the hardest things parents think there is to do.
Yeah.
But the kids don't know what's expected, what the options are, and as you well know, kids are having sex earlier and earlier today.
Yeah.
But it looks like, oh, I saw him or her and we fell in love because he or she passed me a note or asked me out once, and then we had sex, and now we're supposed to be in love. But we're not. And then we have the emotional meltdown. So I see this over and over. And it's heartbreaking for the teen. A lot of them become suicidal, but it could be so circumvented if we have the discussion up front.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, ladies, I think it's about time to just take a little break.
All righty.
What do you think? Yeah?
Now have a little break. This is getting hot and steamy, and then we'll come back with more.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
We've got more with Ann Schiebert right after this.
You've listened to the shows on CTR, and perhaps you've found yourself thinking, maybe I should host my own show, but I don't know how. It's easier than you think. From the beginning with private coaching sessions to your own live broadcasts, CTR Network will prepare you on every level to share your knowledge, expand your brand, and take your business to the next level. At CTR, we nurture your vision and make it a radio reality. Contact Cameron Steele at 425 221-3646 or Cameron@ctrnetwork.com and put your dream into motion today.
Welcome back to Life Mastery Radio. If you've just tuned in, our guest today is Dr. Ann Schiebert, and she is a doctor of clinical psychology, and she wrote a book. She's written many books, but the book we're kind of talking about today is Let's Make a Contract, Getting Your Teen Through High School and Beyond. And before the break, we talked about, many things. And during that time, Debbie, I think we had somebody text us a question. So maybe we could read that question for Dr. Ann.
Yeah, sure. If any of you have a question, you're welcome to call into the show at 1-844-390-8255. You can also text a question in, and we will read it on the air. So this one is from Marietta. She is from Miami, Florida. She says, I really feel like I learned a lot of family values from my husband, who is from a very large military family. But I don't really feel like I know how to express values to my kids. They are very small right now, but as they grow older, I want to know how to talk about these ideas to my kids. Can you really explain to us the idea of values and how to express why they matter even while they're young?
Oh, Marietta, that is such a great question, and thank you for it. This is when we really start at a very young age. So family values for very young children can be experiential. So if your toddler has a toy and some other toddler wants it, and your toddler hits the toddler, and the other toddler cries, we take our child aside and we say, one of our family values is about working things out. And if your family value is about sharing, this is the kindest thing we can do when we have company over, and is to share our toys. And that is how we start. If you haven't started at that young age, then at an older age, it's never too late to start, by the way. At an older age, we start talking about our family value is about honesty. That's a made-up value. So if that is your family value, we tell the truth to each other, even if it may hurt somebody else's feelings. And we teach them how to be kind in being honest. And if we don't know what our family values are, then, as I said, it's never too late to start explaining them. In my book is the value sort, and by each value is a definition of what that value means. So by having you parents take the value sort and then communicate that to their children at an age-appropriate time, or giving it to your teen, what are your values? That is a wealth of information, because you could have a total mismatch and know where you need to channel your child. So great question.
I noticed that in your book you have this entire list of values, and not that all of them apply, but for a couple of parents, or even a single parent, to really understand what those are and what those mean to you will then help reflect those onto the kids. Is that kind of the gist of it?
That is absolutely true. And by talking about our values, it's a way of giving our children a foundation for what your family thinks is right and wrong. And it helps create what I like to call as a wisdom bank. So nice. I'll make up something. So my dad thinks lying is bad. and I, as a teen, lied often. And I disrespected the family value. And what was the consequence for that? If my dad ignores my lie, then what he's teaching me is I get a pass for disrespecting the family value, and by the way, he's disrespecting his own value by giving me a pass. So we have to make really sure what we're going to do about this, because we don't ever want to be confusing in the messages that we give our offspring.
You know, I use a really good example of that too, of you know, my rule is not to lie, and yet, you know, up until you're 6, 7 years old, you know, I'm going to get you to believe that there really is a Santa Claus.
Absolutely.
I know.
That's a great example.
Oh, yeah.
And then what do you do, right?
Right. Well, you're setting a standard. You're not supposed to lie, but it's okay to tell little white lies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
well, that's a fine line, isn't it? So for Santa Claus, I don't know, we could think outside of the box. We believe in some lovely stories, and we believe in Santa Claus. And then kids will come and say, "You lied to me. You didn't tell me about." Well, Santa Claus is a lovely story that we believe in until folks create a new story.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So it's loving and kind. It's not punitive, and it doesn't make your child wrong, because telling little white lies is part of our culture, actually, and lots of other cultures too.
Yeah.
But instead of punishing, to put it in, to reframe it, to make it sort of like a life milestone. And now you know that story, and we have other stories.
We do have a lot of story. We have another very quick text question here. I really like this. She says, I'm asking Todd because he's a Toastmaster, or I'm asking the guest because she is a leader on parenting. How do I keep my children, my husband, and myself communicating face to face instead of always communicating on our phones? She goes on to say, and I don't mean voice phone. Nobody answers their phone in my family. We text and we don't understand each other. Yeah. And I think I'm really feeling frustrated. No, I'm feeling hateful. Okay, I said it. What do you have to say?
So I just want to say one thing, Todd, before you embrace that question, and that is, I am also appreciative of this question. I was at a lunch, and I sat at a restaurant, and I sat across a table from a family of 6 who never said one word to each other during the entire lunch. I watched them because they were texting on their phone. So I really get this question. I'll turn that back to you, Todd.
I think she really does want you to answer it. I think she's just she's probably saying,
here's the deal. In Toastmasters, we go to a meeting to communicate, and I don't know that I would have a response to that other than, I just read a very interesting article about texting and how they are finding that it really starts to degrade a person's own personal integrity when they're not communicating face-to-face, eye-to-eye, and sharing those feelings energy-wise.
It's something I'm really big on, and this texter is from Jeannie, and I believe, Jeannie, you were in my mastermind group. I'm looking at your picture here, but she had expressed that while her kids were approaching college and such, that she was feeling lonely and angry and starting to feel. She said, I don't hate my children. I hate the fact that I don't have access to them. I don't have access. This phone, this texting has taken away from access. And, I really love that she said here, I'm angry. There, I said it. I'm hateful. There, I said it. because I relate to this. And it's not that we want to cut anyone off. I think it's that we want to get back to what this program is really about today, and that is the values.
Well, let's look at the process of how texting becomes okay. So let's go before she got angry. How did we as parents contribute to that? Well, when we got a text, we texted back, right? And I'll make up something, there's probably no guidelines about, I'll text you, I'll respond to you twice a day, otherwise I'd like to Skype with you or be in person, and we don't have our cell phones at the dinner table, and I love you and I'm going to come visit because I want to be face-to-face with you. So we have to think ahead of the trend of texting as a way of communication. And I have so many folks who say, so-and-so texted me the worst thing and I'm upset all day because of it. And I say, well, but you keep reading it.
Exactly.
And so we have to have some boundaries, and we have to create or recreate what we've already made okay. So I like to call this kind of thing something that goes into what I call the okay corral. And what hangs out in the okay corral are things that are not okay, that we've given tacit approval to by not doing anything about it, and even sometimes participating in it. So that the things that are in the okay corral are really, really, really strategically challenging to correct. But we played a part in it, and we have to own it as parents. So our caller gets to have that communication with her kids and figure out a different way and tell them she's feeling angry and lonely because that's authentic, and then figure out what the contract is around that and how to preempt having that keep happening in the future.
You know,
that's really good.
As you were saying that, I was thinking, because my kids talk to me via text. I mean, it's just an ongoing thing. But you know, a good response from me would be, "Hey, you need to call me," or "Hey, let's have a chat. Let's chat on the phone," or like you said, let's Skype, or you know, changing the way that we respond can then help guide that because a lot of what you're talking about, Anne, is making some changes and making some tweaks. But the idea is not to just do it all at once. I mean, it's gradually gotten to this point where it's not good, and now it needs to gradually get back to where it is in the okay corral.
Right. But we can't do it all at once because that is too confusing and too disruptive, and we will fail. So
I think you are both skilled at that. And I think you're really, really skilled at understanding that. I'm just observing both of you from over here, you know, because I know Todd well with his daughters, and I'm listening to what you're sharing. I think that's something that goes past many of us, that you're not going to create change overnight.
Mm-mm. Well, we've trained it by participating in it. So we have to untrain ourselves and in the process offer our hand, our loving hand, to the person we want to retrain and say covertly, please join me in this because I miss you, in this example of texting. I miss you. I value being in person with you. And can we set some time aside? I hope we answered. I hope we addressed that caller's concern.
Well, she has clarified that she was in Alan Cohen's coaching program with Todd and I, and says hi. I had confused her with someone else, but yes, I think we have responded to that. Now we have Mike from Oakland who says, what do I do about the fact that my wife and the kids make communication without me, and then they just inform me of the deal when I walk in the front door?
Oh, my gosh, I do love that. These are great questions today. Well, what is the agreement with your wife about that?
Yeah.
And this is really hard sometimes because one spouse can disempower the other, and it's called triangulation, as a as opposed to having an adult hierarchy of mom and dad or mom and mom or whoever. Make the decision, we talk about it, and then we'll get back to you. Otherwise, the kids divide and conquer, and what happens is it causes a dispute between the two parents. And that's often a touchdown for the kids. Mom,
Wow.
Can I borrow $20? No, you can't. Dad, can I borrow $20? Yes, you can. Yeah. As opposed to, let me confer with your other parent, and we will come back to you as soon as we can about the $20. Then you have a team. But to disempower one parent is really disrespectful, and that needs to be a conversation about parenting. And what often happens way after we have kids is the parenting conversation instead of before we have kids. Like, how do you want to parent our child?
Right. And to understand, too, Ann, that the kids will play that. I mean, they will play that to the nth degree if they know they can get away with it, if the parents aren't on the same page.
It's a touch down, and it's the way actually, and additionally, addicts keep enablers in tow.
Well, I didn't really learn that lesson until my wife and I got a divorce, and then it became apparent that we were being played, and even though her and I didn't see eye to eye in our personal relationship, we still had 3 beautiful daughters that we needed to keep an eye on and not get involved in that game.
Well, that's an important point, because that is an adult conversation about, honey, how are we going to compromise? And how can we make a contract between us about compromise, which is another conversation and another family value that's often not discussed, and people don't know how to do it. But a compromise is a win for both parties if they're adults knowing no one's going to get his or her way in a compromise 100%. Right. But it creates a happier relationship for all involved, for kids and parents.
I just want to take a minute here and plug your book. The book that we are talking about today is Let's Make a Contract, Getting Your Teen Through High School. Dr. Ann's website is, well, of course, LetsMakeAContract.com. You can go there, find more about the book. And, I always like to do research, and I found this comment about your book, and I just wanted to share it with everybody. This book is a must-read. Not just for those that are having these issues, but for those who love learning. I feel that this reading should be placed in doctor's offices, hospital waiting rooms, and an essential gift for those having to deal with the addiction of children, friends, and family. More worth the money. You won't regret it. The author is concise, knowledgeable, and clear. It just might save someone's life. Sorry about the spelling in my last review, but my keys are worn and I'm not a typist. Blah, blah, blah. I just love a little comical throw in there. But her message was very clear. And I thought that I get the feeling that this book, it's niched. It's niched toward helping guide our kids. But this is truly a life mastery concept in creating boundaries, understanding values, understanding what's important to you, and how you relate to others, especially others that are very close.
And I just want to share one little thing about this book. The teens who I know have read it love it. And you know why? Because it also holds parents accountable. It's not just them.
Right.
The parents have a consequence if they don't follow through, and it's in writing. And what that does, it instills in the kids that it's not just they who are the identified patient, so to speak, or the wrong, bad person, that their parents are also going to have an outcome and be held accountable. And the teens get great joy in holding their parents accountable for not doing what they say they're going to do.
Yeah.
I really like to hear testimonials, and I'm sure that you've gotten many responses from this book and the many other books that you've written. But does something stand out of a communication you've gotten from somebody that has adopted your concepts and the idea of a contract that you could share with us?
Oh my gosh, yes, and it has to do with the computer. And this little girl was getting bullied on the computer, and also strangers were contacting this. I think she was 13, and the parent had never thought about limiting the computer use or putting a tracking device on the computer, or checking the sites that were used on the computer or who was coming in. And she read the computer section in the high school book and came to me and said, I cannot thank you enough. I think I have saved my child's life, because she was feeling so badly about what was going on the computer, social media. And I have done all the things that you recommended, and I have a much happier child, even though she's angry that she can't use the computer 24/7. But she's happy. We go do things together. We go shopping. We go out to lunch. We go to movies. And she said, I am going to do the rest of what's in there about sibling rivalry, because that was an issue in her family also. And that worked.
We didn't even get a chance to talk about that. And that's huge.
Well,
yeah.
You know,
if
the parents will do it, if the parents do it, it works.
It does
Debbie,
work.
I was going to say, we're going to have Ann back, because there is a lot more. And I really had fun. This was a great discussion. I mean, we really
I loved it.
Cool things, yeah.
Me too. It was lovely being on your program, and I cannot thank you enough for having me.
Oh, and thank you for being here. I just want to give a little shout out to those who are having sibling rivalry and share. My mother always told my brother and I, you will know each other for the rest of your lives. Make friends now. And we are just so tight. Make friends now with your siblings. Your three daughters, Todd, just love and adore each other and spend so much time together. They made friends from the very beginning. There's no reason why we can't.
Yeah. Just a reminder.
Well, I could say a whole bunch about sibling rivalry, but I know we're getting close to time.
Yeah,
but we're going to have you back.
Oh, well, thank you.
Reminder to the listeners, you can go to www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com. Click on today's show page, and we have a link there to our guest's website where you can find her book. The book is in Amazon. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter. Debbie and I put out a newsletter every week about the guests that have been on the show and the guests that are coming on the show. And I forgot about it at the beginning of the show, but check out my book, 6 Keys to Life Mastery. It's getting great reviews on Amazon. I really would like to see some more, and I would really like to know what you think about the book. So.
And let us know what city you'd like us to send Todd to share about the book. We'd be happy to come.
That's it. Debbie, did you get any takeaways today? We just have about 2 minutes left.
One big takeaway is what you focus on, what you are willing to be systematic about, what you are willing to communicate about will allow your family to flourish.
Yeah, very good. Thanks again, Ann. That's about all we have time for today. I want you to just consider a couple of things. I want you to make it a great day, because it's all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for tuning into Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life. For more information on Todd and his guests, visit his website at www.lifemasteryradio.net. That's www.lifemasteryradio.net.